What is going on, y'all? Gamers Goon here today, and today, as you can see, we have the bracketology up, ready to go, and that is because, well, it's Election Sunday. So I made my own bracket. Um, I made my own bracket for this. Um, we'll go first off. Let's go through all the auto bids. The auto bids: American East, UMBC will be winning. And going through that one. American, I have USF winning, but the winner will be an auto bid. The A10, I have VCU winning, but once again, the winner will be in ACC. Duke ended up beating Virginia. A-Sun Queens has been the winner, and they've won like a week ago, basically. The Big 12, Arizona. The Big East, St. John's with a big win over UConn. The Big Sky went to Idaho. Big South went to High Point. Um, Big Ten championship. It's between Michigan and Purdue. Could create some movement, maybe. But I have Michigan winning that one. Hawaii ended up being UC Irvine last night to win the Big West. Hofstra won the CAA. Conference USA went to Kennesaw. Horizon League was Wright State. The Ivy League is the first game of today. Penn versus Yale. I have Yale winning that one. The MAAC, Siena ended up winning. The MAC was Akron's to lose. Big time three late in the game. Akron is dancing. The MEAC went to Howard. The MVC went to Northern Iowa. The Mountain West went to Utah State, who were actually the favorites to win that one. LIU Long Island winning the Northeast. Tennessee State won the Ohio Valley. Patriot League went to Lehigh. The SEC is between Arkansas and Vandy. Ole Miss almost made some noise and got in there. I do think Vanderbilt wins the SEC. The SoCon went to Furman. After the SoCon, we had the Southland, who went to McNeese. They are back in March Madness. Then Prairie View A&M winning the SWAC. The Summit League was North Dakota State. The Sun Belt went to Troy. The WAC last night, Cal Baptist ended up winning that one. And then West Coast went to Gonzaga. So here is my rankings here in March Madness. The number one overall seed to me is Duke. Duke's been impressive all year. They beat Michigan in a one-on-one. And I think it's 1A and 1B there between Duke and Michigan. So Duke is my number one complete overall seed. Michigan, like I said, I think is number two. Arizona, Florida. I like Arizona more. I think Arizona, being conference champions, obviously, adds to their ability to go on and be the higher of the two between them and Florida. Houston, I think they had a close enough game against Arizona that they should be higher than the UConn team that got blown out. UConn got embarrassed by St. John's. I think Houston should be rewarded. UConn takes a step back, still on the 2 line, but going to have a trickier path, it looks like. Then you get to Iowa State. I thought Iowa State was a 2 seed all along. Turns out they probably will be. This is where we kind of get in a rough situation. Michigan State did not have a good conference tournament. I kind of didn't want to have them on a 2 line, but ultimately I couldn't justify putting anybody else there. Purdue, I have as the number 3 seed. Once again, they're playing for a conference championship. I think they should be the highest of the 3 seeds. Illinois, 1 point was a 2 seed projected. Unfortunately, not a very good conference tournament. Blew the game against Wisconsin, a close one, went to overtime, lost it. Um, Losing close games has kind of been the motto of Illinois and their losses this year. Um, so I think three line there is probably where they're sitting. Gonzaga, always one that's trickier to predict, right? Where they're lined up on the lines, simply because they don't play in the most dominant conference, right? It's St. Mary's, and this year Santa Clara's in it. But I have them there right behind Illinois on the three line. And then we have Virginia. I really like Virginia. They hung in there with Duke last night. Um, I think Virginia should be on that three line. We get to the four line. I think Vanderbilt, like I said, wins the conference championship here in the SEC. I think ultimately, I do have Vanderbilt being the number one overall seed as the four seed. It might shift around if Arkansas were to win. Arkansas would then become a four, and you might switch up who plays who, right? I do think Vanderbilt would then be probably either right at this Arkansas spot, or maybe I'd have them right below Wisconsin there as the number one overall five seed. But Vanderbilt as the four seed, I like them as number one. Then you got Nebraska. I'm not super high in Nebraska. Having them as a four seed still doesn't really feel right to me. But based off of their wins, right, they've got to be in this line. You got Alabama. Alabama, another team that the conference tournament didn't go really as planned. I think they'll be a four line. Very good offense. I think Alabama can turn things around here in March Madness. St. John's. I had St. John's sitting on the five line. I was ready to drop him maybe to the six line. But St. John's with a big win over UConn, instead of sticking on that five line, they were kind of probably where this Kansas team is. I did bump them up to the four line. I think a big win against UConn. I think they should probably be on that four line. Like I said, kind of Arkansas and Vanderbilt playing for that four line, if you ask me. Next, we get to Wisconsin as the second overall fifth seed. Good Wisconsin team this year. They've had some big games. They've played close. They beat Michigan earlier in the year, I believe. They almost beat them again in the conference tournament. They beat Illinois. They beat Purdue. Right? They can slay some of the top Big Ten teams. This is a team that can be dangerous in March Madness. Wanted to put them higher, but couldn't really find a way to. Kansas, I'm really sour on this Kansas team. I know a lot of people probably have them on the four line. I do not like this Kansas team. I think they are a team that is kind of not going to make it into that second weekend. Um, Obviously, it'll be determined based off like kind of their path that we see for Kansas. But I'm really, really sour on this Kansas team. I think their highs are real high. They can hang with a lot of good teams, but I think their lows are just as bad as their highs are good, right? So that Kansas team, very, very versatile, but also I think they have a lot of weaknesses that can be exploited. Texas Tech, this is a team that if you told me at the beginning of the year would be on the five line, I would have thought you're crazy. I'd be like, well, this is a two or three seed. Um, they slowed down towards the end of the season. Their star player, JT Toppin, got hurt. They wound up here on the five line. Still a good basketball team, a team that could probably get into the second weekend still. But they did obviously have that downwards trend this season. Tennessee, shout out to my guy Cam. Cam has been telling me like he does not trust this Tennessee team, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him. I don't know if this Tennessee team can go beat like the better teams here, right? Everybody above them. I don't know if they can go beat. And then I think Tennessee here, especially in like they're playing at six, so they're going to be an 11 playing against an 11. If they run into, let's say they run into a St. Louis, right? Let's say they run into potentially one of my playing games, a Texas, an SMU, right? I don't know. I don't know. Tennessee might struggle with those. You might get to Louisville. There, I think Louisville is probably the most dangerous of the six seeds. I wouldn't want to play Louisville if you're potentially running into them in the second round. I would not want to see Louisville. Yeah, North Carolina. Um, Not really fully sure on Caleb Wilson's status, but North Carolina not a team that particularly scares me going into March Madness. BYU, obviously they have AJ DeBansta, but also a team that's not great, not playing its best basketball lately. You're really looking at a team that they have a star in AJ DeBansta. They have a few pieces. They have Saunders. They have Kibikeda, right? But a team that I think really you can go out and beat because I don't think it's a team that's really gonna really hold their own against some of the better competition here. Then the seventh seed, I really like Miami. I really, really like Miami. I kind of wanted to find a way to get them a little higher. This is as high as I could get them. But I like Miami on the 7 line. UCLA, I love, love, love UCLA on the 7 line. I know they lost to Purdue. I wanted to bump them up to a 6 seed. I really like this UCLA team. The results weren't there to get them up here to a 6 seed, but I really, really like this UCLA team. I could see them going on a little bit of a run, maybe to the second weekend. Kentucky, I'm pretty sour on Kentucky, to be honest with you. I think they can make the second weekend, but I don't have extremely high hopes for this Kentucky team. But I think they do belong on the 7 line. Clemson, I think decent 7 seed, but obviously the weakest of that group by far. St. Mary's, another one. I do have them as the number one overall 8 seed, but I do think St. Mary's is probably worse off than Ohio State. If I had Ohio State versus St. Mary's, I think I would take Ohio State. The other two, I'd probably take St. Mary's. But St. Mary's, I think the results are a little bit more promising for what they've done this season, deserving of that 8 seed, number one 8 seed honor. So St. Mary's, the number one overall 8 seed. I like this Ohio State team, another team that I think can make a run. An older team. You have Thornton, who's been around for a while. Tilly, who transferred in, right? So they do have some veterans that can lead that team there at Ohio State. Villanova, welcome back to the dance. It's been an interesting time not having Villanova in the dance, but Villanova is back. I like Villanova. See what they can do in this tournament. I really, really don't love this Georgia team, but the bubble is so bad that Georgia, they're not even really in the last four in. Like, the bubble's not a good bubble, but I don't love this Georgia team. They'll be sitting at the 8 seed. Number one overall 9 seed, especially after winning their conference tournament, to me has to be Utah State. Maybe you can even bump them into an 8 line over Georgia, but Utah State, I think, is going to be a fun watch in the first round. If they make it past there, it's just going to be fun. I don't know that they will make it past the first round, but I am excited to see Utah State play their first round game. Then you got TCU. I like TCU. I think TCU can make some noise. Give whichever 1 seed they play a little bit of pressure. Not saying they're gonna go beat the 1 seed, but I think they can apply some pressure. I do like TCU. I absolutely love A&M. This was one of the teams that I was pushing for. I was like, they've got to be in. Um, I want to see Texas A&M play in March Madness. They will be playing in March Madness. Like I said, a weaker bubble kind of allows teams like TCU and A&M to make it. Um, then you got Iowa. Iowa obviously haven't been at Sturts there for them. A team right now that, once again, don't love them going into March Madness, but I do think they could beat some of those teams and maybe play close against one of the top seeds. Then you got NC State as the number one overall 10 seed. I think um, they are pretty much a lock to be in. Um, if they're the number one overall 10 seed, who knows? But I do like them there over a team like UCF. Santa Clara's got to be in. They've got to be in. I don't care that they didn't win their conference tournament. I like Santa Clara. There's a good offense there. They played Gonzaga. Gonzaga's a 3 seed. I want to see Santa Clara in. Santa Clara can make some noise, especially if they're going up against a team here in the 7 line. If they ended up running into like a Clemson, maybe even a Kentucky. I don't know that I'm taking them to beat Miami or UCLA, but Santa Clara can make some noise. And then we have the winner of VCU versus Dayton sitting as the last 10 seed. Like I said, I do have VCU winning that one. We're going to take VCU there. And then here's where we get like a lot of the last 4, right? The last 4 for me: Miami, Ohio, Missouri, SMU, Texas. St. Louis, I think, is in regardless. I think they're in regardless. Miami, Ohio, I think they're in. Missouri and Texas. Missouri, SMU and Texas is kind of the next group, right? Missouri, SMU, Texas, and Miami, Ohio. I think Miami, Ohio is good. But Missouri, Missouri, Texas, SMU. You're looking at games with Dayton, and you're looking at games with Wichita that potentially play spoiler to that. I don't know if that VCU team will get in as an at-large bid, but VCU is a team that has been pretty good. USF also been a pretty good team this year. So to cause the least amount of chaos for these bubble teams, I think you got to root for VCU. I think you got to root for USF. I think you got to root for Yale. I don't think I don't think Penn is gonna steal the spot if they ended up winning. I think they would just kind of replace Yale. But there is where we start to get on the bubble here at 11. Miami, Ohio, like I said, should be in. They are my first one of the last 4, and like they're 65th and they're 68, right? 65, 66, 67, 68. 68 teams get to play in March, including play-in games, right? They're at 65. I think Miami, Ohio is safe. Then you get Missouri, who I have in a play-in game. USF in Wichita, like I said, the winner will also be in a play-in game there. 12 seed, I really like Akron. I think Akron can make some noise there as the number 1 overall 12 seed. Like I said, I think Yale beats Penn, so give me Yale to win that one. And Yale will be sitting as a 12 seed. McNeese State, not very high on them. I think a lot of people are going to get fooled with McNeese State this year. I'm not buying into the hype. They are a 12 seed. I'm not buying the hype, though. And then I did do kind of a flip here. I know High Point has the better record. I do think Northern Iowa, though, would be the better team going into March Madness. You could flip these two. I know a lot of people do have them flipped, but I do have Northern Iowa as the number 1 overall, or the last 12 seed, and High Point as the number 1 overall 13 seed. We have Cal Baptist in there as a 13, Hofstra, Hawaii, both in there as 13s. Didn't think Hawaii would end up winning their conference. So these are all the conference champions now, right? The 14 seed, we got North Dakota State, Troy. You want to avoid Troy if you are a 3 seed. I don't want to run, if Illinois is getting picked, I don't want to run into Troy. Wright State, I think, could be a solid first game. Tennessee State, team that I like. I just think they're kind of getting the rough end of the stick there, being on a 14 line. Sorry. Yeah, Kennesaw State there. Very, very fun team. They'll be a 15. You got Furman on the 15. Idaho on the 15. I know some people have Idaho as a 14. I have them as a 15 seed. And then you got Siena there as your last 15 seed. Then we get to the 16s. I have the 2 safe 16s being UMBC and Queens. I think both teams deserve it. But then I have LIU playing Lehigh. I have LIU playing Lehigh there in the first four games, and then I have Howard playing Prairie View A&M. So this is going to be kind of what the bracket breaks down to. We have Duke versus the winner of Howard and Prairie View A&M. And then you have the 8-9 game being Georgia versus Utah State. The 5-12 being Arkansas versus Northern Iowa. And then you have the 4 versus 13 being St. John's versus High Point. The 6 and 11 is BYU versus St. Louis. 3 versus 14 is Purdue versus Tennessee State. The asterisk is because I think VCU wins. Miami versus VCU would be a really good first round game. And then you get 2 versus 15, Michigan State going up against Kennesaw. So that's the Duke side of the bracket, and the bottom side would be the Florida. So these would run into the Duke winner in the Final Four. We have, let me make sure that, Hawaii ended up winning. I did this while Hawaii did not correctly predict Hawaii was going to win. I was just doing this during the Hawaii game when they were up like 7. But you get Florida versus UMBC. Then you get the 8-9 being Iowa St. Mary's, another really good first round game. 5 versus 12, Texas Tech versus Akron. I think that would be kind of one of the ones that could be a popular upset pick, especially a reeling Texas Tech. 4 versus 13, I have it being Vandy versus Hawaii. 6 versus 11, I have it being, I assume, USF going in a play-in against Texas. Will go on to play Tennessee. Then we have the 3 versus 14, Virginia versus North Dakota State. The 7 versus 10 would be Clemson, NC State. That would be a fun one. And then you have Houston and Siena there as the 2 and 15. So as of right now, if I had to pick a group, to just picking somebody coming out of this group, obviously Duke would be out of here. Florida, I don't want to just go chalky and say Florida. I think this is just a fun video. This isn't my official bracket, right? Like, this is not a real bracket at this point, right? This is just kind of let's have fun making the bracket before the bracket. I would have Duke and let's say Virginia coming out of here. Duke versus Virginia rematch there in the Final Four. Then we get to Region 2. This is the other side, so this would be the other Final Four matchup. Michigan versus LIU or Lehigh there in that play-in. This is Cal Baptist. Cal Baptist ended up winning their game. But Michigan versus LIU or Lehigh. Villanova versus TCU would be a good game. Wisconsin versus McNeese State would be fun. I don't like McNeese State's chances. Alabama versus Cal Baptist. That would be very good for Alabama. UNC versus Miami, Ohio. Could be a fun game. Illinois playing Wright State. Then you got UCLA playing Santa Clara. That'll be another fun one. And then you got Iowa State versus Furman there. So if I had to pick somebody to come out of this one, I would be taking Michigan. The only other option to me would really be Iowa State. I don't see Illinois going on a run. I don't see Bama really going on a run. Wisconsin maybe could do something. But yeah, we're gonna take Michigan there. So far we got Duke, we got Virginia, we got Michigan, and then we get the Arizona bracket, which is Arizona versus Queens. Ohio State versus A&M will be a fun game. Kansas versus, I believe it to be Yale. Nebraska versus Hofstra. Louisville versus the winner of Missouri or SMU. Gonzaga versus Troy. Gonzaga gets, in my opinion, the trickiest 14 seed to beat. And then you get the 7 and 10 matchup in Kentucky versus UCF. That should be another fun one. And then you got UConn versus Idaho there. And I will be having Arizona come out of that group as well. So you got consensus ones, but you do have Virginia coming out of the Florida bracket, and that would be your Final Four in that scenario. But like I said, this was just something fun, just doing a video just to have fun and kind of make the bracket before the bracket comes out. The official bracket will be later today, so obviously we will cover that once it comes out. But thank you for watching. Kind of the early bracket. We'll see. We'll see how close it actually is. It's just something I wanted to do for fun this year. So don't take it too serious. Anyways, thank you for watching. See you next time.